Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Valley Air Board meeting today, and I'd like to have our clerk have roll call, please.
Good morning. Mr. Bessinger.
Here.
Mr. Couch.
Here.
Ms. Escutia-Brayton. Ms. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Mendez.
Here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Mr. Pereira. Mr. Preciado. Mr. Reyna. Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Mr. Robinson. Dr. Sheriffs.
Here.
Ms. Schicklien. Mr. Chiesa.
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and could Director Mendez please lead us in the pledge?
Ready, salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this time, could do we have the consent agenda read out publicly? So we just approve it? Okay. Okay, so okay, we have the public agenda, and I'll go to the clerk to see if we have any public comments.
Good morning. Do we have any public comments in Bakersfield?
No members of the public in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? We do have one member of the public.
It's on the consent, man.
Would anybody like to comment on the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Bessinger?
Yes.
Mr. Couch?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rickman?
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff?
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa?
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 5, public comment. This is a time made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. It is requested that no comments be made during this period of time on items on the agenda. The public may make comments on each board agenda item during the time allotted for public comment on that item. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. Each public speaker has an allotted time of 5 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Okay. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak in Bakersfield?
No members of the public in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Modesto?
No members of the public in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno who would like to comment? We do have one coming.
Let me get my act together and know which agenda item. Apologize. Manuel Cunha, Nice Farmers Lake. At this time, I would like to recognize on August 25th, we had a tremendous tour in the San Joaquin Valley, dealing with 2 pieces of equipment that this district and ARB have been tremendously supporting. We did an almond harvesting tour of the newest harvester type for almonds. And the second one was the vineyard of a cordon vineyard that had a lot of steel and wrapped around the canes or the trunks of the vines. We invited the ARB, entire team came. Martha Guzman from EPA and her staff came to the tour. And of course, the Valley Air District, and it's tremendous. I want to thank Jamie Holt and her entire team and Shiraz and others who helped put this thing together. We had about 53 folks. as well as the meeting afterwards to talk about the future. Where are we with almond harvesting? And the machine that the folks saw, the amount of dust was at probably 1% of the entire harvesting. It was tremendous. So great opportunities, as long as our partners work with us, as long as the administration of EPA, their word is their bond and not the truth. But again, I want to thank, and the vineyard harvesting was tremendous with the steel. It was just pouring out the steel on one side and shooting the wood out on the other side. And again, that project, I want to thank Samir and his entire team and Todd and Aaron for helping with that growers for us to continue on looking at control measures. How do we deal with ag burning and alternative measures? And we have future meetings planned with the district and ARB to deal with alternatives to wood waste from our farm. So again, I want to thank very much Heather and but Jamie very much for all the work that they did in pulling this together. It was a successful tour and demonstration. So again, thank you.
Do not have any other in-person comments in Fresno. We do have a few comments online. First up, Andrea Uribe.
Andrea, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, board members. My name is Sandra Uribe, and I am a policy advocate for Leadership Council, and I have previously spoken on this item multiple times. I'm here to ask the board to consider an additional set aside of funds for the Clean Air Rooms program in unincorporated communities. Thank you for all the work that y'all have been providing and for all the support you've provided in reaching out to residents. However, I also know that funds for this program keep depleting at a very fast rate. In Madera County alone, there's over 100 people in the wait list. And harvesting season, as previously mentioned by the last speaker, has recently started, and residents from Lavina and Fairmead keep calling and asking if there's additional funds because some of them didn't even get to be placed on the wait list. So that means that the need for this program are very necessary and that folks are still looking for ways in which they could get a clean air room within their homes. These filters are necessary not only for the wildfire smoke that's approaching also this season, but also for the other plethora of environmental externalities such as pesticide and dust. And I think that it would be a great use of funds to have a set aside specifically for this program, seeing that the need is so great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Thomas Menz.
Good morning, Thomas.
Yes, this is Thomas Menz, resident of Fresno County. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. With wildfire smoke seeping into the valley this morning, degrading our air quality once again, it seems timely to remember why we should be avoiding it. A study published in the August Journal of the American Medical Association, Internal Medicine, made a comparison of particular particulate air pollution from different emission sources and the incidence of dementia in the United States. And after control of PM2.5 from all other sources, it was found that PM2.5 from wood smoke, agricultural and wildfires, was robustly associated with greater degrees of dementia in the exposed population. Now, there's little that those of you serving on the board can do about wildfire, except warn folks to avoid the smoke, which the district's emission inventory shows to average about 400 pounds per day annually. But on an average winter day, more than 27 times as much wood smoke is coming from residential wood burning. It's a full 5.5 tons a day in the winter. And that you can do something about. I call on you to ban all non-essential use of wood for heating, except in those homes for which there's no other source of heat. And you could do that in this upcoming SIP revision. At the end of next year, once ag burning is all but eliminated, residential wood burning is the single greatest stationary source of PM2.5 affecting our winter air, 5.5 tons a day. with no measure, no plan to reduce it between 2025 and 2031 as it now stands. And it doesn't have to be that way. You could adopt a ban as a contingency measure for any county that fails attainment of the 12 microgram per cubic meter annual health standard. And need I mention that 12 microgram standard and other national ambient air quality standards were not adopted arbitrarily, as some of you may believe. In fact, that standard has been shown by careful evaluation of health and mortality to be insufficiently protected by the World Health Organization and now by EPA's Health Advisory Committee. So even stronger standards are coming. One last thought, and this is from your own surveys. Most folks living in the valley don't own a wood burning device. Of those who do, most don't use them. Of those who do use them, few use them even as much as once a week. Far fewer use them every day. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of burning wood, but the effect on air quality remains quite significant. And remember that wood smoke is really the worst PM2.5 there is. So there is something you could change. You could reduce that risk, and that's a stone that you could overturn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. And I would like to make a correction on the reading of the public comment. I indicated each member had 5 minutes, but our allotted time is 3 minutes. So I wanted to make that correction for the public.
Thank you. Next up online, we have Connie Young.
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Connie Young, a Fresno resident, retired registered nurse, and volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. I was planning to ride my bike to the meeting today and decided not to because of the unhealthy air. I have appreciated the relatively clean air we've enjoyed for most of the summer, and I thank you for your part in making that possible. When the air is clean, Fresno is a terrific place to ride a bike. As you may be aware, city leaders recently traveled to one of our sister cities, Munster, Germany, to learn how its infrastructure is designed to encourage active transportation like cycling. Next month, on October 27th through 29th, Fresno and the Munster will co-host the Fresno International Transportation Innovation Summit to promote safe and sustainable transportation design, planning, and policy. More active transportation will mean cleaner air. At the federal level, Citizens Climate Lobby has broadened its focus from putting a price on greenhouse gas emissions to including other ways to reduce emissions. For example, we support the Prove It Act, which stands for Providing Reliable, Objective, Verifiable Emissions Intensity and Transparency Act. Prove it. It would require the Department of Energy to report the greenhouse gas emissions intensity of certain products, including aluminum, cement, fertilizer, steel, plastic, and others that are produced in the US and elsewhere. Greenhouse gas emissions are a global issue, and trade is one of the best tools we have to encourage other nations to reduce their emissions. A carbon border adjustment mechanism, or CBAM, imposes a fee on the carbon content of imported carbon-intensive goods and provides a strong incentive for countries to reduce the carbon intensity of their products. Since the carbon intensity of many US products is among the lowest in the world, such a tariff, or CBAM, would protect US industries from higher polluting foreign competition. This year, the European Union will begin implementing a CBAM on imports, including those from the US. The EU's CBAM will include a reporting requirement for carbon emissions for carbon-intensive products. It's important that America not be left behind as the EU and other trading partners move in this direction. I hope you'll consider supporting the Prove It Act. Fewer emissions will mean cleaner air. Thank you.
There's no further indications of any online comments.
Okay, thank you, Madam. So we'll move on to our regular agenda, and we're going to move a few items up above number 6, and we'll start with item 9 first, item 8, and then item 10, and everything else will follow. So item 9.
Yes. So up next is item 9, adopt proposed amendments to Rule 8051.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair and your board. My name is Emily Nealand, and I'm the program manager of our air quality planning team here at the district. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. So as you know, the Valley faces a number of challenges in meeting the federal air quality standards due to our unique combination of both topography and meteorology. We're surrounded by mountains, which often places an inversion layer over the valley, which traps pollution in. Because of this, we're designated as extreme non-attainment of the 8-hour ozone standards and serious non-attainment of the fine particulate matter or PM2.5 standards. So substantial emission reductions are needed to achieve these ever stringent standards, and we must go beyond our already strict control limits here in the Valley. Your board has adopted numerous attainment plans which contain our strategies to attain these stringent standards. And through our efforts, we've reduced stationary source ozone and PM4 NOx by over 90% through over 670 regulatory actions. Similarly, the California Air Resources Board has adopted numerous mobile source control programs, and this combined effort represents the nation's toughest emissions control program. Additionally, we operate strong incentive programs with over $5.7 billion in public and private investment. And through these investments, the Valley continues to make major improvements with respect to air quality. And that's shown here on the slide. On the left-hand side, you can see our improvements with respect to the 24-hour average design value. And on the right-hand side is the annual average design value. So you can see in comparison to 2003, there's a lot more areas coming into attainment with showing the color orange, yellow, and green. And so we've made a lot of improvement. This slide further touches on that. Again, in 2002 to 2003, we had 61% of days meeting the PM 2.5 standard during the winter months and 39% of days exceeding. And then in the most recent years, we have over 93% of days meeting the PM 2.5 standard. So due to the continued efforts by your board, we're continuing to make improvements here in the Valley with respect to PM 2.5. So we're here today again to talk about contingency measure requirements and our latest efforts with regards to that. Most recently in May, your board adopted the contingency measure SIP revision and amendments to Rule 4901, wood burning fireplaces and wood burning heaters, to address EPA disapprovals of our contingency measures in the 2018 PM 2.5 plan. This was developed through a robust public process with multiple opportunities for public feedback from stakeholders. The package included a demonstration that the district and CARB are implementing the most stringent measures feasible and that there's limited opportunities to hold anything back for contingency measures. Again, your board adopted amendments to 4901 to include a contingency provision, and there was also a commitment included to further evaluate and amend Rule 8051 open areas if needed to receive EPA approval of the package. So that is the subject of today's presentation. It is critical that EPA take timely action on our package that's been submitted, as well as this rule that's being proposed today, as we do have sanctions clocks running for our PM 2.5 contingency measure requirements due to recent court actions and EPA disapproval. So there's 18 and 24-month clocks attached to that. Disapproval or inaction from EPA can result in the imposition of sanctions here in the Valley, as well as public health impacts, with billions of dollars lost in transportation funding. So again, timely EPA action on the package is critical to avoid these sanctions, with the transportation funding sanctions kicking in December if EPA does not take action to approve the package. Today's action, if approved by EPA, would address the remaining district commitments related to PM 2.5 contingency requirements. So the subject of today's hearing is our proposed amendment to Rule 8051, which regulates dust from open areas, which are vacant portions of residential or commercial lots and contiguous parcels that are adjacent to and owned or operated by the same individual or entity. And it's not applicable to on-field ag sources. Currently, urban open areas 1/2 acre or more, and rural open areas 3 acres or more. If disturbing 1,000 square feet or greater of land, they must limit their visible dust emissions to no greater than 20% opacity and ensure soil stability. So the proposed contingency measure would reduce the current rural acreage threshold from 3 acres to 1 acre if triggered. There's 4 triggers that could potentially put this into place. First, we have included a provision that would require EPA approval of the measure as meeting contingency measure requirements, and then following EPA action that the valley failed to meet any reasonable further progress requirement, meaning that we're making progress toward attainment of the standard, meet quantitative milestones in an attainment plan, submit a quantitative milestone report, or attain the PM 2.5 standards by their applicable attainment dates. If triggered, this measure has the potential to affect over 10,000 parcels covering over 18,000 acres of open areas based on county assessors data, which would achieve 0.008 tons per day of PM 2.5 reductions. For considerations for comments from your board, we have included some considerations within the proposed rule to ensure that mandated fire prevention activities are not impeded while still limiting dust emissions. So through that, we would allow for both mowing and disking activities to reduce weeds to prevent wildfires. Through our rule development process, we conducted extensive outreach to contractors here in the Valley to get cost of dust mitigation measures, which would vary depending on each parcel and practice selected. Some parcels may already be implementing some of these practices, so there would be no additional cost to them. We do estimate a cost effectiveness of $178,000 per ton of PM 2.5 for gravel application. We do not expect any significant impacts to entities and residents, and EPA also agreed with this in their proposed contingency federal implementation plan, with an estimated impact of 0% to 0.58% of annual revenues. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on our public process. We've had a robust process with multiple public workshops in both April and August to present, discuss, and receive feedback on the proposed rule. We also provided materials in both English and Spanish and provided simultaneous Spanish interpretation during the workshops, and notably no significant public comments were received. Through this process, we also collaborated with CAL FIRE to discuss our fire prevention considerations to ensure we weren't impeding with their processes. We also provided updates to your board, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Environmental Justice Advisory Group. And with that, we have a couple of recommendations here before you, and I appreciate your time and would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Do we have any comments from board members?
There we go. I have a question about the chemical dust prevention. What is that? And tell me about the environmentally correct way chemicals used to sequester dust.
I'll take that question through the chair. Great question, council member. There are a number of different products that are available and certified for use in dust suppression itself as an area of mitigation. There's a long history to it. We have a lot of other regulations, local ordinances as well, related to, say, construction activities. Whenever earth is moved for a variety of activities, there are different ways that you can suppress those dust emissions. Predominantly, we're talking about either watering, in situations where there's that potential to minimize, but also to ensure stability. Those suppressants are not as broadly utilized, although some of those can be used in frequently traveled or disturbed, sort of areas. But you're generally talking about watering and also applying some care in terms of how you go about your activity, speed and process. But yes, there are other options available. But I think in this context, what you're most likely talking about is utilizing some water and also just being more careful with the activity in terms of how you go about and complying with keeping the dust to the appropriate levels.
I would have to assume that this chemical whatever it is, has been vetted completely and is not,
Yes,
we're not gonna have a rise in something else because we're doing this.
yes, these have to be approved through other processes. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other board comments? Do we need to check for the district? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You
I didn't see over there.
doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow on the pressing today. No, I just wanted to thank staff for that presentation and thank staff for the work on this, the clear collaboration with a lot of agency partners, including EPA, CARB, CAL FIRE, doing a good public process to work through this. And I know we need public comment, but I certainly move approval.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment?
No comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do we have any comments in Modesto?
There are no public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, and there's no indication of online comments.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez, Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item up will be number 8, approve project plans for implementation of light duty passenger vehicle incentive programs in AB 617 communities.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Brian Dodds. I'm a program manager in our grants and incentives department. It's my pleasure to be here with you all this morning. Your board has prioritized meaningful community engagement on the district's air quality strategies, which include the 2007 adoption of our environmental justice strategy, implementation of the district's environmental justice advisory group, as well as our AB 617 community air protection program. The district has also invested in additional community-focused resources to support local engagement efforts that uplift communities. With the board established environmental justice and community engagement priorities, the district is committed to helping Valley communities that are disproportionately impacted by economic and environmental inequities, forge new partnerships, and implement clean air opportunities. As a reminder, the district currently has 4 communities that were selected by CARB for focused engagement through the AB 617 Community Air Protection Program. These communities include South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and the Arvin-Lamont area. Each community has developed their own community emission reduction program, which was approved by your board as well as CARB. Each CERP details measures that the community would like implemented in their communities. In implementing the AB 617 program, the district must follow CARB's Community Air Protection Program guidelines. These guidelines include pre-approved incentive projects, which generally follow the Carl Moyer program guidelines, and CERP incentive measures that are not included in the guidelines must be approved by CARB prior to implementation. This process requires the district to submit project plans, which detail program concepts for each measure, which include emission reduction estimates, demonstrate community support for the measure, as well as the program requirements. The district staff has recently developed and received approval on project plans for our vehicle repair and replacement measures, which are included in all 4 of our community CERPs. As CERP project plans are approved and are ready to be implemented, new incentive programs or programs which may differ from previously approved guidelines require board approval. In addition, during CERP implementation, there may be opportunities to adjust program guidelines or shift funding from one category to another. Changes to the established SERP measures are based on evolving priorities of the communities, the availability of projects and willing partners, and ultimately have no impact on the overall funding available in each community SERP, and developed with a transparent process with each community to ensure the support of any changes to the original measure. So in today's item, we're talking about two SERP measures that we'd like to begin implementing. The first one is the vehicle repair component, which will provide residents of the AB 617 communities the opportunity to have their high polluting vehicles repaired at our participating STAR certified smog shops. This measure will follow the same process and guidelines as our existing valley-wide vehicle repair program, and each community identified funding levels that meet their needs as well as their priorities. This measure is expected to reduce NOx and PM 2.5 from passenger vehicles, and similar to our valley-wide program, provide up to $850 in vehicle emissions-related repairs. This measure will also be implemented in close coordination with our program partner, which will require a new agreement, which is one of today's recommendations. The vehicle replacement component will provide our AB 617 residents the opportunity to replace their older, higher polluting vehicles with newer, cleaner options. Also very similar to our existing valley-wide vehicle replacement program. And as part of the SERP development process, again, each community identified the funding levels for their community that reflected their needs and priorities. This measure will also reduce NOx and PM 2.5 from high polluting vehicles operating within their communities, and provide some new higher incentive levels for new vehicle purchase in the communities. So participants, in order to participate in this SERP measure, they must be a resident of one of the 617 communities and must have owned an eligible 2006 or older vehicle for at least 6 months prior to applying for the program. That vehicle must be operational. Participants must also meet the income requirements of the program, which are at or equal to 300% of the federal poverty level, and must agree to operate their vehicle for at least 30 months following purchase. With this measure, the replacement vehicle must be a new or a used battery electric or plug-in hybrid vehicle that is purchased through one of our participating dealerships. And while our valley-wide program provides up to $12,000 in incentives for the purchase of new or used vehicles, the SERP measure for Arvin and Lamont, as well as Shafter, included a new category of incentives that would provide up to $20,000 for the purchase of new vehicles, while the incentives for used vehicles remain at $12,000. In addition, the steering communities of South Central Fresno and Stockton have considered including this new category in their program implementation, and that option could be applied contingent upon the support of the steering committees within each of those communities. So with that, today's recommendations are here on the slides before you. They include approval of the project plans for vehicle repair and replacement, as well as authorizations needed to necessary for implementation of these measures. The next steps for implementation include working directly with members of the steering committees as well as Valley CAN to implement these measures within the communities. In addition, there will be a high level of community engagement to ensure that residents are well aware of the program and receive any necessary assistance in applying for program funds. And this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We have board comment, Mr. Bessinger.
Just a quick question. I'm assuming this is for individuals only. The city of Shafter and school districts and other people wouldn't be able to apply for this?
That's correct,
Okay.
through the chair. This is just for individuals. We do have programs for public agencies, school districts, through the public benefits options that would provide similar incentives if those types of agencies were looking for funding.
Yeah, I could see them jumping at 20,000, but I agree, it should be for individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bessinger. Dr. Scherer?
I found my clicker. Thanks again. As we all have commented and observed before, the terrific program in terms of the repair and replacement. It's been very successful, oversubscribed, popular, an example of improvements over time, how we've learned and changed. I have one question. One thing that is different here is the replacement vehicles can no longer be strictly internal combustion. They have to have some plug-in component so that the vehicle would be running some of the time on that plug-in as opposed to the pollution, direct pollution that we get with the internal combustion. I'm curious, do we know, I mean, there is data about how, in fact, how important the plug-in option is with an internal combustion engine. It eliminates a significant portion of that polluting travel, those polluting vehicle miles traveled. Are we assuming it's going to be the same in these communities? Because I know we've raised questions about concerns about availability of infrastructure for people to plug in and so on. Do we have a way to monitor whether we're being successful in that piece of it? Because certainly part of the power of this for us is how this is going to contribute to help our air quality issues.
That's a great set of questions, by the way, Dr. Sheriff. Through the chair, just a quick response, and Brian, fill in the blanks or correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But generally, with these programs, there's definitely quantification of what the benefit of each project is. So when you have a plug-in, say, hybrid vehicle, there's a calculation that takes into account proportionally how much of its miles maybe come from the EV portion versus maybe combustion, and the reductions are significant. They wouldn't be as significant, say, as all battery electric miles, but there is a substantial reduction. Now, to your question around exactly what's happening for each individual household, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, because I think it's fair to say that for community level reductions, especially with where gas prices have gone, and especially as, I mean, even though utility prices are also going up, they're generally more efficient on the electric side. So I think what you're going to tend to see is more of those battery electric miles occur, in the shorter travel, sort of the community level travel that occurs, maybe the gas portion happening when there's longer travel. But you're also going to see, I think, over time, as there's more deployment of solar and other options that continue to bring the cost down on the battery portion of that mix. That actually can vary quite a bit depending on the household and depending on the unique needs of the family. And so that is something that over time, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I do think that generally speaking, you're seeing more movement towards electric vehicles as a whole anyway. And so I think that while there has been a transition, there's going to be a transition period where the plug-in hybrids are certainly available and actually are the solution for a family that may not, for whatever reason, may not be able to go all in on electric vehicle. I think what you're seeing as a trend in the industry as a whole, by large, is actually, as I'm sure everybody here has seen, is just more electric vehicles becoming available, more of those becoming available as used. And then with the option that you mentioned, the new option, more access hopefully to newer vehicles as well. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but it is something that I think we can continue looking at. And you did note something that was correct there, that the program has transitioned to one where those are the options that are available now under that program. It's consistent, by the way, with where the states, we get some funding under Clean Cars for All. That's the name of the state program. That's where that program is also headed. And just wanted to also make that observation as well. Did I think you miss anything there, Brian? Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Director McCauley.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Just had a quick question on recommendation 4, authorize the executive director to make administrative changes to the program as necessary. Have a great deal of faith in staff of the Air Board to make those necessary changes, but I'm just hoping you might be able to clarify on what kind of administrative changes you might anticipate, and then request that if there are any significant changes made that, while you may not need approval from the board, that you just come back and report out and let us know, what's going on.
Yeah, on the first, we don't anticipate any needed changes, and on the second, yes.
Thank you.
Go to public comment. Any public comment in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comment in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Are there any members of the public in Fresno who would like to comment? I have one comment coming.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, Manuel Cunha-Nisi Farmers League. There's one question I have for, it's really not directed toward this board, but it's directed toward ARB. And that is all of this discussion we've had on EJAC communities, 617, have only focused on cars. Last Friday, before another meeting in the morning at 6 o'clock, I was at a packing house in Reedley. We were doing the $600 COVID payment for the workers, getting their cards, signing them up. One of the workers came up and asked about his truck because the farm manager said, no, go talk to him because he works on the air stuff. Interesting discussion. He lives in a Rossi Cutler. Right now, his truck has been parked. So he's working in the field, climbing ladders for fruit. What happened to the truckers in those rural communities of helping them figure out their situations for their trucks? Anybody that doesn't have a tier 3, that doesn't have, and Aaron or Todd can correct me, dual filters, PM and NOx. You have to have them on a tier 3. Maybe a tier 2 might, but it's not. Those trucks are going to end on January 1. DMV did not issue any registrations this year for anybody for 24 that had a truck that was not going to be compliant. These workers in these rural communities are hundreds of them. And there's never been a time that ARB has addressed this part of the 617 to help those people. So now we're taking a worker that is advanced from the field to driving his own truck. And now we're sending him back to the field because we don't have a program or an idea to sit down how to deal with them. I would like, Samir, if possible, under the recommendations, because this will go to CARB, I imagine, or whatever, or somewhere that this board will approve, to ask ARB to sit down and work on a plan to take care of these trucks in these rural communities. None of these truck drivers can buy a $500,000 electric, nor is there any hookups or connections at all. And the weight of the truck would probably limit them on what county roads to go on. So I'm just asking, we need to direct, this isn't to you, your staff's done a hell of a job, but it's directed toward CARB to not worry at all about 617 communities and only worry about cars and forget about the workers that drive trucks. So we're sending them back to the fields, which is great, but it's not right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no indication of online comments.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So through the chair, just one quick note. We appear to be having a little bit of a Zoom issue. There may be one or two members of the public that we're working with to make sure that they can get back on Zoom. So I just wanted to note that, and we may need a little bit of flexibility later on if we're able to resolve that issue, or we're not sure what's going on, but just want to note that in the event that they may have some comments, for example, on some of these items, just wanted to let you know about that. I think we can still move.
Messenger says, must be present to win.
So I think we can still move forward with the action. I just wanted to note that.
So,
So there was, I believe there was a motion, and I believe there was a second, or was there a second? I
No.
can't,
and
all right.
before we move forward with that motion, is there a telephone number they can call in on if they're not, if
There
they
are
can't-
multiple
That they
ways
can use
to
that.
connect to the meeting, and so I think that's certainly available.
Okay.
So I do believe our IT team is just, reaching out and just making sure that all that information is available to those members so that they can be on the meeting. So yeah, I just wanted to turn it back over to you for action. I believe there was a motion. And,
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Can we have some discussion before we do that?
Certainly, we'll have discussion.
Can we make part of this to direct staff to talk to ARB about the issue that Mr. Cunha brought up? I think it's a valid point. If someone can't afford an electric truck, they're going to be relegated back to, that might cost them their house. It could cost them a lot of things. We need to find a way to, or at least have the discussion with CARB. So if we could add that to it, I would be happy.
through the chair, that's certainly up to the board. I did want to maybe clarify on that point that it is certainly something that's on our radar. As Mr. Cunha mentioned, we have been working with CARB to make sure that this remains in front of them. It is ultimately a CARB and legislative issue, because I think if there's going to be funding, for example, involved in helping address any of these fleets that may be out of compliance with the state's rule, which is basically the situation that they're in, which is why they're not getting the registration. And for example, they can upgrade their truck, say, to like a 2010 compliant truck. They don't necessarily have to purchase an electric truck. That could be a used truck, for example. But the problem is that there isn't any funding available to assist with that. And I think the outreach needs to be extensive on that front. This is a priority for us. It's something that we've been working on. Mr. Cunha does highlight the importance of this. It certainly is an important topic. You can make it part of the motion. It's not related to the item, but certainly something you can do. But I just wanted to let you know that it is something that already through prior discussions and direction, we're already working to address or trying to address. Obviously, it's a very difficult issue.
Thank you. We have a comment from the north from Board Member Chiesa.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to clarify, because if we're having technical issues and people can't have the opportunity to sway our vote, we shouldn't be voting on it until we're sure that people had the opportunity. Just my thought, but we can leave this open, right, and come back and vote on it.
And I believe that one of the individuals, if not, I think it might have been two, is back on.
So there were only two individuals who accidentally got off, but they're back in.
Yeah, so the two individuals that were having issues are back on the meeting, and so I'm not sure if we just maybe look to the
As
clerk
long
to
as they
see if
have
there's
the
any.
opportunity.
Yes.
As long as they have the opportunity, that's fine.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I don't know if you just want to make sure there's no,
Through the chair, there's no indication of any requests for comment.
so we'll turn it back over to the chair for direction on the item.
Thank you. And again, I think the public has also provided information not only for Zoom, but also the telephone numbers that are available for them to call in on, as I understand. So if someone's accidentally taken off of Zoom because of a technicality, they have the ability to call in for multiple telephone numbers. So I'd like to proceed with the motion, and we have a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Yes.
Okay, through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item we'll do is item 10, agenda for November 2023 Governing Board Study Session for Educational and Strategic Planning Purposes.
So good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I will introduce this item. I'm just getting prepared here. Thank you for your patience. So I wanted to first just talk a little bit about these governing board study sessions and their purpose and intent, and then walk you through the draft agenda and get feedback on this meeting. First of all, this has been a great tradition of this board. It's a meeting that we try to hold every year in a more casual setting to talk about strategic items, items that help set the stage, good brainstorming for how to deal with a variety of issues, and do it in a full public meeting, Brown Act compliant meeting, and have a good agenda to basically work through in that meeting. This year, and your board has already set the date for this with the earlier action, but this year, this meeting will be set for November 29th and 30th. It's going to be in downtown Modesto at the DoubleTree Hotel. And generally, it's about a day and a half worth of activity to the agenda. It's a 2-day meeting. And again, this year are excited to talk about what should be another robust agenda full of great items for conversation and discussion. I'm going to walk through these very quickly here. This is an opportunity really for just getting feedback from the board and then work towards this meeting here in a couple of months. So I'll just start with the first item on the draft list here. This is an item that's actually been a tradition of this meeting in recent years. There's a lot of activity going on with respect to wildfire prevention and response. So again, this year we'd like to welcome partners at the state and federal level to talk about the various activities that are going on, maybe hear an outlook in terms of where we are with not only respect to those activities, but also how is the prospect of wildfires looking, and really just have an updated engagement on something that's been very important priority to this board. There's another item here that I think just every year there's a lot of conversation around fireworks and what role we may be able to play in continuing to reduce the impact of firework emissions. This item is really focused on looking at maybe some funding opportunities and looking at our outreach strategy around the use of fireworks and seeing if there's any ideas that the board may have to perhaps look, for example, at some of these larger organized shows and alternatives that may be able to continue to reduce the impact of the use of fireworks. This is something I think, depending on where you are in the valley, has continued to be an area of concern and maybe even a growing concern around safety and other issues as well. And so it'll be, I think, a good discussion as to what role we may be able to play in a positive way to try to address those issues. There's another item here on the agenda that builds on last year's agenda related to community engagement efforts. You heard just now about one of the major efforts going on with AB 617. There's a lot more to the district's community engagement efforts beyond just that specific program. We have been working a lot based on your board's direction on expanding our community engagement across all of our various parts of the valley. We want to update the board on those efforts and continue to see if there's ways that we can keep improving and enhancing our level of engagement to try to maximize the benefit to all of our communities. The next item on the list is continued efforts to partner with Valley Agriculture on reducing emissions from nut harvest emissions. It's this time of the year, actually, right now that you're starting to see these activities going on. Very important parts of the valley. We have quite a bit of acreage that is dedicated to almond and other crops. There's been a major partnership that we've actually had in place for some time now with agriculture to look at these emissions, to look at technology, and most recently with a large federal award as one example of that partnership, a $10 million award, continuing to promote those technologies and see if we can actually develop a vision around how do we address the source of emissions. This is the time of the year where you see this occurring. And so that's the purpose of that item, to really engage with agriculture and others on how to look at that. The next item on the agenda is again building on recent discussions, discussing climate and climate initiatives and potential San Joaquin Valley opportunities. This region is a source of innovation, a lot of opportunity here to take various funds, state and federal funds, and position them to really do a lot of great work here, whether it's sustainable agriculture, whether it's the fleet transitions that we've been talking about, and doing it in a way that works in the valley, that's supportive of agriculture, of our agencies here, of residents here. This item will be a great opportunity for talking about how to leverage these opportunities and to really highlight the importance of being at the table and working collaboratively on these things. So that's really the purpose of that item. Item 6 on this list is to talk about something that was just partially discussed in the prior item, but it's looking at the heavy duty vehicle and equipment infrastructure challenges and opportunities. There's a lot of goals in the state for transitioning to electric and other types of vehicles, there's a lot of challenges with that. And so when you think about everything from the cost of vehicles, range of vehicles, to the infrastructure side with the electrical grid as one area of importance in terms of this conversation, what we want to see happen in the Valley is to see these transitions happen successfully and expeditiously. And I think having a conversation around where we are across these different facets and seeing if there's opportunities and also understanding the challenges is going to be very important to make sure that we can try to be successful in this space. Utilities are a big part of this, and others are a huge aspect of how to have that conversation and being a part of that conversation. So we'll be looking to tee up some conversation. I think some of the issues that were raised earlier around owner operators and small fleets and the unique challenges that they face, I think are another key aspect of that. That's followed on this list by looking at some of the great work that's going on here with information systems technologies. There are a lot of projects that we've been working on and are currently working on to improve efficiency, to improve customer service and access to what we do here. So we do want to highlight a variety of those things and get board input on some of those major activities that are going on. Then, of course, our work culture here is always on this agenda. We want to update the board on where we are with our service, teamwork, attitude, and respect work culture, and continue brainstorming how we keep elevating our game here, if you will. Just to use my daughters don't even use that term. I'll use a term that I used to use maybe back in the day, but that's something that we keep doing on a regular basis with the board is really brainstorming how we keep and continue to improve the culture here and our level of service to the public. That's followed by updates from CARB and EPA and exchanging with our key partners at the state and federal level. Last year, we were fortunate to have actually the chair of the California Air Resources Board and the administrator from EPA Region 9, the top level officials there, at our meeting to talk to the board about how to collaborate and some of the big things that are going on. And so I think we'll see, how that looks this year, but we are definitely, as always, interested in providing for that level of opportunity for engagement between the various agencies. Then the board will hear from the Employees Association, which is a very important aspect of obviously of what we do here. We're all about the people and the staff and really empowering our staff here. And so that'll be a great opportunity for exchanging with leadership from the EA as well. And that really is the draft list of the agenda items. This is an opportunity for the board to weigh in on this. That agenda itself won't be published until the required times around the November meeting, but wanted to make sure that we shared with you what was on that draft agenda. And if you had any input on this, if you had any other ideas or wanted to just weigh in a bit more on these items, this would be a great opportunity for that. And I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair, and the board for any discussion on this. There's no action required on this. Just wanted to open up the opportunity for engagement on this.
Thank you. Do we have any board comments? Okay, I would like to make a comment. And this is one, in regards to the fireworks, I feel very strongly about cutting the head off the giant on this one. And that is, I would like to see CARB work with our legislators to do away with all the illegal fireworks that are coming in the state of California out of neighboring states and from foreign countries. They're extremely unsafe. In my community, I'm sure as in other communities, people's homes have been engulfed and burned down. A lot of rooftops gone as a result of illegal fireworks. They frighten animals. Animals get away from their homes and escape and are running loose and are just frightened out of their wits. And these fireworks are shot off year round. Any holiday that comes up, people are shooting them off. They shoot them off in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when people are resting before they rise for work. And our local law enforcement can't catch everyone who shoot off these illegal fireworks. So my recommendation would be that we try to encourage CARB to work with our legislators to come up with something to make the illegal fireworks illegal in our state, and that they can't be purchased and brought in, and that our state covers our borders where they're coming in, and making sure that people aren't able to purchase those and bring them back in the state of California. It's become a really big problem and a nuisance over and above safe and sane. I think there are more people that are buying these fireworks and shooting them off rather than the safe and sane fireworks. So those are my comments on it. We also have a comment from Board Member McCauley.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I just want to thank staff for continuing to make wildfire a priority for the district. Obviously a huge issue, as Mr. Mims and Ms. Young had mentioned earlier, one of the greatest contributors to PM 2.5. So again, thank you for continuing to make this issue a priority.
And we also have Board Member Sheriff.
Thank you. And I just, I think it's a great list of things to consider. I think the study session is valuable in that it gives us a little extra time to consider some issues and also bring in some of our partners to the discussion that gives us an opportunity we don't always have. It's an ambitious potential agenda, 10 items. And I would just suggest if we need to shorten it to increase the amount of time that we devote to other issues, I don't know, maybe I'm showing my age. Maybe the IT one we could leave for another board meeting, or I don't. Anyway, that, and I think you know, it's great we recognize STAR, and I hate to not have that at that meeting, but it's something we do at other meetings, and I think if we need to do it in more depth in other board meetings, an appropriate place to do that. But the kind of wider ranging discussion that I think we benefit from at the study session, well served by the list of potential agenda items. Thank you.
Okay, any other board comments? I see none, and so we can move on to item.
Through the chair, just a quick suggestion, just given that there's no action on the item, but I did notice that we noticed that there were a couple of hands that were up. So it's up to you, but I think if you wanted to allow some comment on this one, you could. Just wanted to note that for you.
Okay, I don't see any board comments coming in on the leaderboard, so I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda.
Or any public comments?
No, this is not a public comment.
An action item.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item.
The next item will be item 6, verbal report on wildfire season.
All right, good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science and Planning. I'm joined by Jamie Holt, Chief Communications Officer, and we're going to give you an update on the wildfire season so far this year in 2023 and some of our efforts for outreach. So as we always give a background here, as we know, wildfires can generate an enormous amount of emissions that can easily exceed all the mobile and industrial sources here in the valley. Overwhelms our control measures. It can lead to very high concentrations of particulate matter, and wildfires also produce NOx and VOC, which are precursors to the formation of ozone. So we can see high PM and ozone during the summer wildfire season. Fire suppression policies have led to extensive fuel buildup. Drought-driven tree mortality, changing climate conditions have all led to very intense wildfire seasons the past few years. Our efforts to track this and to help with this is supporting local, state, and federal fuel reduction efforts to reduce the severity of wildfires through prescribed burning and other tools. And we have a lot of extensive public outreach during the summer season as well. So this is the metric we continue to track year by year. We've shown this a number of times. Starting from the year 2005 on the left, this is the total number of acres burned through wildfires throughout the entire state. And then if you go to the right, you can see the year 2023, that is a year-to-date figure. So we've highlighted here those 2 years of 2020, 2021, which were the 2 record-breaking years for the state for wildfire activity. The year 2022 was less than that, and 2023 so far, we're pretty close to 2022. But again, this is year to date, and we could surpass that by the time the season's over. We also track this table that CAL FIRE produces, the 20 largest wildfires in California history. Wanted to point out again that 9 of the top 20 here happened during the years 2020 and 2021, which is just shocking of how bad those fire seasons were. So far in the year 2023, we have not had fires large enough to make it in the top 20, which is good. And we hope it stays that way as we continue through the next couple of months. We also track drought conditions across California in our region. And this is a big change that we've seen from last year to this year. We're on the left-hand side, we're looking at about September of 2022. You can see a lot of areas in exceptional or extreme drought in San Joaquin Valley with a lack of water. As you know, this past winter season, we had a lot of rain and snow. All that precipitation has helped change the landscape here for drought in California. You can see where we are now, a year later. Not much drought experienced anywhere in California at this time, which is good to see that change from one year to the next. Yes. So this is a list of the number of fires that have impacted the San Joaquin Valley's air quality so far this year. You can see there's a long list here. The ones that are highlighted in orange are the ones that are actively continuing to burn. Up in Northern California or Oregon, a lot of that smoke is continuing to come down through the San Joaquin Valley. And we also have a local fire here, the Redwood Fire in Tulare County, that's also impacting the valley's air quality. So we continue to closely track these and their activity and how they could be impacting local air quality here. And just to show you some of the results of what's happened from these fires so far this summer, we're showing some PM2.5 concentrations here based on a 24-hour average from late August through about the middle of September. If you look at the left-hand side here, you see that our average concentrations were elevated when smoke from the Northern California wildfires pushed down into the valley for a few days. You see these numbers very close to that federal standard of 35 micrograms per meter cubed. And then you can see when you go to the right-hand side, the Redwood Fire becomes more active in Tulare County. And that big spike there, that is from the Ash Mountain Air Monitoring Site that's near the Three Rivers community. You can see much higher concentrations there in the canyon there near the fire where the smoke comes down through the community there. And we're continuing to see some higher concentrations in that area. Then if you look a little more closely, instead of a 24-hour average, if you look at hourly average values, you see much higher concentrations. These numbers can vary throughout the day, but we can see some high hourly spikes of concentrations of PM2.5. So again, on the left-hand side, it's the same time frame here, but you see higher values when the Northern California wildfires impacted us late August, where we saw values around 75 micrograms, as high as that. Then if you go to the right-hand side, you can see the big impacts to the Ash Mountain Three Rivers area from the Redwood Fire in Tulare County. And you see this profile, this diurnal profile, values getting high and they get low, then they get high, then they get low. That's what we normally see, and that's just based on the upslope, downslope flow during the day when the atmosphere heats up. The smoke can lift off the surface, concentrations tend to be a little bit lower. Then in the evening when the atmosphere cools down, all that smoke descends down with the air back to the surface, and we see higher concentrations in the evening. That's why you see that oscillating pattern there near the Redwood Fire in Three Rivers. Just a few satellite images here of what happened during this period on the left-hand side. That's showing August 30th. You can see a lot of smoke coming off of those Northern California, Oregon fires going along the coastline. And you can see a lot of that smoke traveling down the valley through Sacramento into the northern parts of the San Joaquin Valley. And then the next day, again, you can see a lot of haze throughout the region impacting our air quality. And then to the right of there is September 12th. So you can see a lot of smoke from the Redwood Fire in Tulare County coming down off of the area into the Tulare County area there, impacting the air quality. And this is just a few images from a satellite loop here. Just wanted to play through this a couple of times, just showing you all the smoke coming off of those fires up in Northern California, going along the coastline. And you can see a lot of haze throughout the valley there that impacted our air quality this day. And just recently, this is continuing to happen. Just yesterday, we saw another wave of smoke coming through the valley into today as well. We're seeing a lot of impacted air quality today as a result of this. Again, you can see smoke coming down from Northern California through the valley along the coastline, as well as some smoke from the Redwood Fire down that circle in Tulare County. On the right-hand side, this is a map of the EPA Air Now tool, where you can see the real-time air quality, and you can see how many areas yesterday were orange or yellow, when oftentimes this time of the year air quality is green for PM 2.5. So a lot of impacted areas for air quality yesterday and into today. As we normally do, we always work with land managers to coordinate when these issues happen. We work with them on a daily basis. We have a daily call with land managers and the National Weather Service to talk about the air quality, the weather, fire activity. We hosted our annual cooperators meeting a few months ago to talk about our process to support them, what we can do better, talk about lessons learned during the previous year. We've had a number of interagency meetings throughout this past year. We also work with local agencies to help deploy temporary PM 2.5 monitors to measure air quality in local communities that are impacted by wildfires. And always we work with local managers to anything we can do to help support their forest management efforts to reduce fuel. And just as an example of our outreach, I wanted to say a bit about the Redwood Fire that's been happening in the Sequoia and Kings National Park. We reached out to them, let them know that we operate our local air monitoring equipment cache program. So we have a number of air monitors here in a cache in one of our facilities that we can loan out to an agency who wants to do some additional air monitoring in a community being impacted by a wildfire, or if they want to do this to measure air quality during a prescribed fire. So we reached out to them and they took advantage of it, and they got a monitor from us and they placed it in the Wood Lake community that's just downwind from the Redwood Fire. And I just wanted to note on this slide here that in the EPA Air Now tool, you can view this data in real time. So on the map that you can look at in the Air Now tool on the right-hand side there, you can see where the Redwood Fire is located. You can check the growth of it day by day as it changes, and then you can see the air quality there in the Three Rivers area. And then on the left-hand side there in the map, you can see the Wood Lake monitor that the Park Service set up from the equipment that we loaned to them. And you can click on that and view the real-time air quality data, so community members can take a look at what's happening locally to help them make decisions on what they want to do for their outdoor activities or any actions they want to take to protect themselves. And we're really happy and proud of our partnerships with the Park Service, the Forest Service, CAL FIRE to offer this equipment and this coordination to help get local air quality when needed. So I'm going to pass it to Jamie now to give us an overview of our outreach efforts during wildfire season.
Good morning. As you know, providing accurate and timely health protective air quality information to the public is our #1 priority when we are seeing the impacts from wildfire smoke hitting the valley. Key to that is a partnership that we have with our local public health officers and directors. We have regular meetings with them. We had our season kickoff meeting this past July, and we do sit on the Central Valley Public Health Consortium, which is an ongoing kind of team of public health professionals that talk about a whole variety of issues, and we make sure that air quality is one of those issues. We're communicating daily in both English and Spanish with the media. Actually, Heather just walked in here and told me that one of the TV stations was coming this morning to talk to her about the smoke impacts we're seeing today. We are out at schools on a regular basis, and we're communicating with them on a daily basis, especially when we have these really unique air quality events. We want to make sure that schools have correct information and are able to make the best decisions for their students with the information that we give them. We've also been doing a lot of in-person outreach at schools recently, and that just helps get our information out to parents as well as school administrators, teachers, and principals. Social media is very key to what we do. We post in both English and Spanish on our 4 primary social media accounts. That's Facebook, X, which is what used to be called Twitter. There's been a lot of conversation around here whether we should call it X or Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And we're doing that on a regular basis. We're making sure that the public is getting the information wherever and whenever they need it. We will link back to the most recent press release that we put out so that wherever you are and whatever type of information you want, you can get it. You can get it in both English and Spanish, and it's very accessible. We also make sure that the public understands that they don't have to just use our app. There are a lot of tools out there, and they're all good. And if the public has a one that is their favorite, that they find is easier to use, or that gives them the information in a format that they prefer, we're A-okay with that. Just to go through the list here, the two on the left, those are the Valley Air District app. They will tell you what real-time air quality is, and then they'll also give you the trends that we're seeing at any given time. The third one there from the left that says Fresno at the top, that's actually a weather app. And on most of the weather apps these days, there is an air quality mention. That's coming from our monitors, our data, but you can get air quality information on most of the weather apps. Then you see the EPA's Air Now tool, which continues to get better and better. We're very grateful for that. It was a bit clunky back 10 years ago when we launched our app, but it definitely is getting better. Then there's the EPA Fire and Smoke Map, which is what John just brought up. And what's unique about that is some of those temporary monitors are shown on the EPA Fire and Smoke Map. That last map is Purple Air. Those, of course, are the personal air sensors that folks can purchase. There's also a website that's put together by one of our nonprofit partners called SJV Air. That's also a site that people like to use. And again, we don't want people to track air quality information. However they can get that information, as long as it's accurate, we encourage them to do that. We have a wildfire page that gets used quite a bit during this time of year. It links to both our real-time air advisory network and the EPA's Fire and Smoke Map. It has a lot of information. It will link you directly to the fires that are currently impacting the valley and take you to the incident report webpage for each of the fires so that you can get more information than you ever wanted, both on what the fire's doing, is it growing, how many folks are working the fire, are there evacuations in place. Then a lot of information both on how to protect yourself from wildfire smoke, about the clean air centers that the district has put throughout the valley, air quality information on how you can prevent and minimize wildfire, Foothill Mountain community information, and then a lot of outreach materials are on that website. This is just an example of one of our outreach pieces. This is some of the stuff that we've been giving out to schools. You can see it's in English, Spanish, Hmong. We also have it in Punjabi. Just a quick update on our Clean Air Room program. This is the program that allowed us to send air purifiers to any Valley resident living in a disadvantaged community. It was super easy and streamlined. Folks signed up, they told us where they lived, and we basically worked with our partner to send them an air purifier plus one replacement air filter. They were shipped directly to the applicant's home or an address that the applicant wanted it shipped to. The Valley-wide portion of the program has been closed. All those funds have been exhausted, but we do have some funding still available in our 3 AB 617 communities of Fresno, Shafter, and Stockton. Just some outreach materials. We did a lot of outreach in both English and Spanish, and then used a QR code. They're getting more and more popular to send folks directly to the portal where folks could apply for the program. This is just some fun photos of some outreach that we've been doing recently out at schools, at community meetings, making sure that we're getting feedback from the community on how we can refine our wildfire messages, and then educating members of the public about what they need to be doing and thinking about when we do have these smoke impacts. With that, I will turn it back over to you, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. Okay, so trying to figure out, is this just a report for the board? Okay, so are there any board comments? Well, I guess I'm the one that has a comment again. So I wanted to go back to page 8 for the elevated PM 2.5 in the month of August, September. I noticed that most of these cities that were indicated are probably on the 99 corridor. But there was nothing in Merced County. And I think we have an air machine in Merced. Did we somebody turn on a vacuum and we were okay?
Yeah, just to make the chart a little less crowded, we didn't include every single air monitoring site in the
Okay.
valley, but Merced was impacted similarly as Modesto and Stockton and Madera. It was similar air quality impacts during that time period.
Okay. And then for the school outreach, is this generally for the 617 districts, or are we reaching out to schools throughout the valley within our district?
We reach out to every school in the district. It's part of our Healthier Living Schools program, and we have been doing presentation, direct outreach, back to school nights in up and down the valley. I have staff, I feel like they're gone all the time. But yes, and if you have specific schools that you want us to double up on and make sure that we're happy to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Samira was, okay, all right.
Thank you. That concludes the report. Move on with the agenda at this point. Thank you.
Number 7?
The next one is item number 7, review and provide comment on the 2022-23 annual report to the community.
Morning again, Madam Chair and board members. I'll be walking you through this item, and again, appreciate your patience as I get ready here. So really quick, as far as background on this report, as you've heard earlier, and really central to the board's principles, public accountability and transparency is something that's top priority for this board. It's a core value of the agency. And so one of the aspects of being accountable to the public is preparing this annual report to the community. That is something that over time has become a really important resource for this agency, for the staff, and really a good communication mechanism for residents, for agencies, for policymakers about what we've been doing basically over this past year to continue furthering our public health clean air mission. Unlike many of the presentations and documents that are put out, this report is meant to be a bit of an easier read, a bit more accessible in terms of the information that's provided. Basically outlines our goals and objectives, and basically the work that's, again, has been done and the progress that we're making in cleaning up the air. Has been very, very well received over the years by stakeholders. It's available in both English and Spanish. That's something that the board has also weighed in on in the past, and it has become a component of making, again, this report most accessible to the public. And every year, part of putting the report out there for the community is having an opportunity to share the draft and get some feedback from the board, and then move forward to publish it and distribute it to individuals, organizations, and others throughout the valley to share the work of this board and agency. So I did want to walk through the report really quickly this year, and then just kind of note and offer an opportunity for talking about just getting it out to those that you all interact with and getting any ideas on sharing the report. But I do want to walk through it. So hopefully everybody has a copy of it, and I'm just going to do it's a lengthy report, but I do want to just hit on the main topics just really, really quickly. And if you have any feedback, again, this would be a great opportunity for it. So I'll start on pages 1 and 2. There's basically a message from me on behalf of the board to the community about the work that has been done and some of the things that are coming up. Obviously, the board is here, and this is something that is a key part of the report. That obviously we look at that from a legal aspect and make sure that it's carefully distributed, with respect to the board and itemizing that to the public. We talk about the district, pages 3 and 4, from a fiscal perspective, and of course we start with our core values of who the agency is and summarize those for the public to see, starting with the protection of public health, but then all the various values that we have here at the Air District. Pages 5 and 6 transition to high level importance of what we do. So basically who we are, the clean air control strategy that we put into place, how we partner with the state and the federal government, and the journey that we've been on, where Valley residents are undoubtedly breathing cleaner air today than we ever have. And the progress that we've made in that over the years, the investments that we're making and how those are providing for pollution reductions as well as translating into better air quality levels for all of our residents. So we start with that and report out a bit on that progress. Pages 7 and 8, or 7, we talk about the importance of that from a public health perspective and drill down a bit more on why we do what we do and why it's important to continue efforts to clean the air. Then we start profiling, some of the big work that's been going on this past year. So on page 8, we highlight the ongoing progress that we're making and working with ag communities to address and reduce open burning and share, again, at a high level, some of the great work that has been going on there with Valley Agriculture and all the tremendous progress that we have been making, they have been making collectively with us. We then go on to summarize on pages 9 and 10 a bit more on the air quality progress that we're making, just different ways of looking at different metrics. We talk about ozone. Pages 11 and 12, we drill down a bit more on PM2.5. Those are the two big components of the air quality issues that we have here in the San Joaquin Valley. Pages 13 and 14 highlights, one of the things that this board has been prioritizing over the years, the ongoing work with the Residential Wood Smoke Reduction Program, highlighting the national award that the Air District here received for the implementation of that. A lot of areas across the country are really looking at the model that this board has created and trying to emulate at least some of the components of it. I mean, it really is a comprehensive strategy and one that has gotten quite a bit of attention by other states and other areas because they are looking at trying to build on the work that we've already been doing here. Pages 15 and 16 get into a bit more of some of the partnerships that we have with our residents, the wood stove changeout program, the funding increases for electric heat pumps, and there is quite a bit of movement in that direction. That's a technology that has become more and more accessible, particularly with some of the federal funds that are becoming available for that. And so there's some highlighting of that effort. Pages 17 and 18, I won't talk much about this because you just heard a big report actually about these specific items. Pages 19 and 20, then, this is a very important part of the report. This really just highlights the ongoing progress that we're making with our plans and how we're doing relative to the various commitments that we have, and essentially a scorecard there in terms of that work that our board does to reduce air pollution, again, with CARB, our state partner, and just the progress that we're making relative to our planning efforts. Pages 21 and 22 highlights the work that the Air District does from a regulatory perspective, the various control measures that your board adopts, and highlighting some of the recent work that has happened there and some of the work that's to come here in the near future. Then pages 23 and 24 delve into the community engagement work that we do. You saw a couple of examples of that today already on a couple of the specific efforts. So that spills over and continues to be discussed on pages 25 and 26. Just really good examples of some of the work that has been going on in our Valley communities to highlight their concerns and to try to bring action into those communities. Pages 27 and 28 continue to summarize a lot of that work, funding that we've been expending through the Community Air Protection Program, which is focused on not only AB 617 communities, but also communities throughout the Valley. It's a very important program in this work. And then page 28, as part of that fold there, summarizing the work in the 617 communities, the various measures that are being implemented there. Pages 29 and 30 highlight what, and you saw again some examples today of the work here, but the nation-leading clean air grant programs that we operate here. These are programs that we fight for funding for every year at the state and federal level. We're successful in bringing those funds to the Valley, trying to bring our fair share of those funds here and put them to good use. So you see on page 30, the investments that were made across different programs. This actually highlights about $300 million worth of funding that was provided, and that was matched with $618 million of partner funding. So the total investment is nearly $1 billion actually highlighted in this report, which is an amazing number when you really think about that, as that trajectory has continued to go up as we fight for these funds and put them to work right here in the San Joaquin Valley. Pages 31 and 32 can highlight some of that work. The electric lawn care equipment program that's really been ramping up, actually. A lot of public agencies and private partners are taking advantage of that now. And both of those pages help highlight that at the residential level, as well as with our commercial partners. We actually have a grant that we're a very lucrative program that our board approved, and we're actually in the middle of implementing right now to make those technologies available. Pages 33 and 34 highlight, and you heard actually a lot about this earlier today, the vehicle programs with our residents, the repair and the replacement efforts to really try to empower our low income and disadvantaged communities. It's just so important to make these vehicles more accessible to our residents. Pages 35 and 36 really get into the partnerships with agriculture. And these are just a few of the examples. That's actually one of the issues that you often have with these reports, is that there's so much good work going on that you're just trying to make this information available to the public. The farmer program, and just profiling that work and trying to provide a little bit of a snapshot as to what's going on there, the showcases that we do to highlight that work, and then the low dust nut harvester program that I mentioned earlier. Pages 37 and 38 get into some of the efforts with showcasing and then highlighting the work of Valley partners here that are actually now doing some of the things that nobody ever thought really could be done. Some of the electric truck projects. The first project in the world actually happened right up north for deploying large-scale heavy-duty electric trucks. They also deployed other technologies. This is a work in progress, but it is important to highlight, when there is success here, and hopefully we can build on that success. So that's highlighted here on pages 37 and 38. Moving on to 39 and 40. Some of the other work that's going on, we run the statewide Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Program for electric, transit, and school buses. So we're continuing to move that program forward. So that's highlighted on page 39. We worked with partners to deploy clean locomotives. That's top of page 40. And then, of course, here in the Valley, we focused quite a bit on electric school buses. There's been a lot of interest from school districts on those, or for those buses. We've been supporting that through our ongoing efforts. Pages 41 and 42. So 41 highlights the district's ongoing work to really lead by example and looking at our fleet and transitioning that fleet to electric vehicles. We are moving forward with that strategy. We're doing it in an aggressive but also feasible way. And what I mean by that is that it's being phased, and as we learn and also expand the charging network, are moving forward very quickly with this, but in a way where we make sure that everything that we do here is done completely effectively, and that there's never any sort of impact to our operations with that. And I'm happy to report that it has been working, and that we are continuing to move forward aggressively with that strategy. Page 42. Oh, actually, there's a little profile there. Just one of the stories of back on the point that was raised earlier about the public fleet and the public benefit grant program. We have tremendous partnerships across the Valley with our public agencies on various vehicles. And so we just wanted to highlight a little bit here about one of the examples of where one of the electric, the Ford F-150 Lightning trucks was helpful in actually helping one of our residents with a situation that they had, and just different things that we're seeing playing out again with our public agency partners throughout the Valley. Page 42, we talk about our advocacy that we do. This is something the board has always prioritized and championed, and to greater effect over time. That's why we see the funds that we're seeing here. It's not an accident. These funds do not just show up here in the Valley. We have to work really hard as an agency to make this happen. Pages 43 and 44 get into some of the newer opportunities that we've been engaging with CARB, EPA, and a variety of other agencies to see how we can bring some of those funds to the Valley. So we talk about those efforts. Pages 45 and 46 start getting a bit into a little bit more of the summary of internal operations and some of the issues around sources of emissions, and just trying to provide the public with more information about what do we actually do, the nuts and bolts, where do the emissions come from. Pages 47 and 48 really start getting into just, and the rest of this report really into more of the internal operations of the district, the various departments and what they do. Some of the news around things like the National Award for Financial Excellence that we've been fortunate to have received here for a number of years now. Pages 49 and 50, getting into the permitting work and some of the various programs there. Page 51, enforcement and just some of the basic statistics over the last year related to various inspections and other activities that our enforcement team is involved with. Pages 53 and 54 get into some of the outreach work that we do, and this has been a huge priority, as Jamie mentioned, of the board, empowering our public and really just meeting their interest, which has been growing over time on air quality. Has been something that we've been taking very seriously and work very hard throughout the year to do. Pages 55 and 56 get into our work culture and just the wonderful staff that we have here, and just how much we really focus again on empowering them and delivering exceptional service to the public. We always want to highlight just how hard we work to do that and to give back to our community. And we are a part of this community. We were excited about the work that we do, and so this report is just a great opportunity to share that work. I know there's some hyperlinks in here. I think Jamie wanted me to mention that this is while there's a piece of paper that we're looking at here, this is a very modern electronic report that has links and it looks really great when it's on our webpage. We do have printed versions that we can make available as well. But as we all move towards technology, it's actually a great electronic resource and a little bit easier to share, actually, although we do make hard copies available on demand, and in certain settings, it actually is very, very useful to have that as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair and board members, for any ideas or any suggestions that you have.
Thank you very much. We have a board comment from Board Member Bessinger.
Thank you. This is an excellent report. Can we go to page 8? And we're looking at the working with ag communities to address open burning. One of our callers today talked about wood fires being used by people, heating their homes or for aesthetic purposes. But at least in my community, and I've seen in other communities where there's a large amount of dead trees on trails and median islands and things like that. And I was wondering if staff could find out if there is an urban remedy using this type of technology. Because I can see the potential for, if we can, on the spot, take those trees down and just mulch them down, cities and counties might be interested in that. It could be used for dust abatement, for erosion control, and it would also reduce the amount of trips back and forth to dumps that whoever's going to come in and cut these trees down and grind them up and take them up to a dump. So I think there would be there could be an application. I'm looking at the size of these machines, maybe not, but maybe there is something out there. And I'm just throwing this out here for the board, if there's an interest in this, because come January, February, it's going to be budget time for cities and counties. And if there was an urban use for this, if we could make that work, that would be where they would consider this type of method. I don't know if we need to direct staff on this, if there's a consensus, or if it's something that you can work directly with me on. In the event that there was something, we approached somebody and they would, yeah, this could work. I would work with the League of Cities, and I would talk to somebody about a county, talk to the counties, because I could see if this was going to work, having the public works directors from all the cities meet at a location, they do a demo, And at that point, they could say, okay, we could budget for this, so this might be a fiscal year 25, 26 issue, but at the very least, it would be on their radar, because eventually these trees are gonna have to be cut down or they're gonna catch on fire. And so either way, we have to remedy this, and hopefully this would be the kindest way to the environment.
If I could respond, Madam Chair, I just wanted to first acknowledge, I think there may be an opportunity there, and maybe just suggest a path for that. Just first to characterize maybe where the opportunity may be. I think currently there is mortality, say, of trees, in an urban setting, and so currently, as far as I understand it, cities and counties have services that maybe they're in-house, maybe they're contracted, but they go around, they deal with these trees. They probably have to bring in equipment, cut things down, chop them up, put them in a grinder. There's emissions associated with, say, the grinder, and then they have to haul that off to facilities. There may be waste diversion issues, and all this. So there's probably some goals around maybe minimizing how much of this ends up in facilities, some benefit potentially there. So air quality benefit, maybe some cost benefit. So I think there's maybe some opportunities, what I'm hearing, to deploy maybe some different technology that minimizes, say some of that activity and cost, right? I think one thing we could do, especially if there's interest there, say at the city of Clovis, is maybe we could, as a pilot, try to kind of explore that and see, okay, what sort of technology might work in an urban setting? Is there a demo or something that we can come up with? And if there's any other board members that are interested in exploring that, it could be a small group also that can have that conversation. But I certainly would offer that we could engage, if you can connect us with those of the city and we can have a conversation about it, we can explore it. And then if there's something there, we can then share it more broadly with the board in terms of, whether we want to be involved in any way or in a productive way in that conversation. Happy to make that happen if that's the desire of the board. If that's generally okay with the board, I can follow up with you and see where that goes.
And Mr., for a secondary comment on that, I think, for a lot of cities and maybe counties, it depends on their budget as to what they're able to afford to do. I know right now we're aggressively working on tree trimming in our community and doing away with dead vegetation. Our local company that does all of our landscape maintenance hired an arborist who is working with them to remedy some of these problems. So again, I think for each county and each council, there needs to be that progressive movement to deal with those issues regarding dead vegetation and dead trees. And I know in the valley, many, many years ago, there were certain types of trees that were planted that are now becoming diseased and causing problems. But I think locally, there has to be a movement within your council or within your county to deal with that. But certainly, I think the board, if the board wants to work with a particular city as a pilot program to find out what would work, we also have to consider, again, the budgetary processes of each of those cities, whether or not they're able to afford to do it in a progressive manner. But it is a problem. It's been an ongoing problem for some time, and a lot of trees have been just sitting there dead and, waiting to cause havoc. So with that, I'm going to go to Board Member McCauley.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Thank you, Chair Lewis, and thank you, Member Bessinger, for the comments around chipping in the urban areas. Definitely a huge issue in my district in Madera County. Dead, dying trees, piles of trees, those sorts of things. And so just a quick comment in regards to that our local resource conservation districts do have some pretty robust chipping programs already. So in Fresno County, that would be Sierra RCD, and in Madera County, that would be Coarse Gold RCD. So that may make a very natural partner if the board is interested in moving forward with developing a more robust chipping program. So just point of information.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheriff.
Thank you, and thanks to staff for what I think is really an exceptional report. They get better and better each year. I hope the community finds this empowering, encouraging their engagement. Really centers our mission in public health, and I think it's really some great education and explanation about some of the basic science, about the district mission, about our progress and how we've achieved that. It's remarkably comprehensive and concise. And it really is easy to follow, Samir. Thank you. Good work. I just want to comment, the section on new climate initiatives, appreciate that very much. I've been seeing surveys of the Valley. It's an important area to be sure we highlight and include, because I see surveys of Valley residents from Pew, from Yale, from UC Merced that indicate a growing percent of the public is very concerned about climate change and sees a clear connection between human activity and climate change. Over 70% of the population concerned about this, so it's important that we're seen as engaging in that. So thank you. Great report. Great report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheriff. I just have a couple of comments. Page 14 on our residential wood reduction program and the award that we received. And as I understand, there are other places throughout the country that are looking at our model. For some of the air districts within California that may not have this aggressive model, are they looking at what we're doing? Because certainly, we can see the fires that are up north, how that affects us down here. On the west side of our district, we still have the Bay Area that has a lot of vehicles that the pollution comes over the mountain and it sits in our valley. So I'm just wondering if some of the other California districts are looking at our model.
Yeah, so sure. Yeah, so my earlier comment also included other parts of the state as well here as well, and nobody has the program that we have here, including in California. So they're certainly looking at it as well and trying to learn from our experiences here for sure.
And lastly, page 46, where we have the monitoring data for Science Guide air quality strategies. We have 2 monitors in Merced. Is there any way the district can consider looking at and budgeting for in the future putting a monitor on the west side, which would hit the Interstate 5 corridor for Merced County?
It's certainly possible, as it would be possible, say, to put a monitor on in other parts of the valley that don't currently have the EPA regulatory grade. It's a large basin, it's 25,000 square miles. So this issue, when discussed in the past, it's always a difficult issue, right? Because I think every part of the valley, I think would love to have, one of these, very expensive, because you have to not only purchase the equipment, you have to staff it. It's a very, very, very costly endeavor to actually have these sites. So we currently exceed all the federal requirements. And so when it comes to, say, siting a monitor there versus other parts of the valley, it's a broader discussion with the board. It's not just about interest, say, in having one there, but it's also then it raises questions around. So it's a difficult discussion. It's one that we can certainly look into if that's something that you think is a high priority, but it would become a broader discussion with the board.
Well,
around where those would need to go, and certainly you can make the case for it, but there's a lot of other parts of the valley that I'm sure would also want to make the case for that as well.
Absolutely, and of course, I have a prejudice because of Merced County, but the Interstate 5 corridor is very busy, and as you travel north with 580 intersecting, and you have a lot of traffic going up into Stockton, Sacramento. I don't know how many stations are in that area, but I guess maybe breaking it down for me, I probably would like to see a report to see how many monitors we have on the 99 corridor versus the Interstate 5 corridor. And both corridors are very heavy and commodities moving, and so that's just something I would like to see.
And just a quick response to that too, for informational purposes, page 45, just to make sure you saw that there,
Yes,
that's a little bit more of a
that's the page.
detailed map on, but we can give you, there's actually more information available on our webpage too, as to where all the, which I'll be happy to share
Okay,
with you. And just another little bit is we have taken a look, and I'll also share with you some information that there currently is a lower grade monitor. I believe it's out there at the school that we don't operate, but it's out there, and we've actually looked at this before in the past. Generally, we haven't seen any different levels in that area than we have in other parts of Merced. That's been the findings that we've had in the past. We're happy to share that with you and just have an ongoing conversation with you about location and just make sure we address the concern. But it is a overall kind of
all right.
difficult
Thank you.
discussion just based on resources. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other board comments? Okay, thank you so much for that report, Samira. And we'll move on to item, I believe it's item 11.
Item 11 is the verbal report on California Air Resources Board activities.
I just wanted to note that the agenda item has a summary in there. Dr. Pacheco Warner is not able to be here today, so I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have, but the summary is in the packet, and we'll turn it back over to you to see if anybody has any questions about it.
Okay, before we move on, Samir, on your report, was that going to be any public comment for that, or was that just a report to the board?
It's not an action item, so there doesn't need to be public comment. It's really up to the chair to.
Can I ask a question about that? The instructions at the beginning of the agenda regarding the public comment period are for matters that are not on the agenda, and it doesn't say whether they're action items or not. So I think there's been some confusion.
No, there's not.
Okay,
Well, do we have a public member?
That's her discretion. She can let her talk.
Sorry?
I mean, that's her discretion to let her speak if she wants to.
Okay, well,
I guess I'm wondering, so at the beginning of a meeting, so the public should understand whether it's an action item or not an action item?
All government entities normally only allow comment on action items.
Okay, let me take control.
So then perhaps the public comment explanation should inform the public that they may not be able to comment during the meeting on an agenda item if it's not an action item.
Samir,
no, I've never seen one that actually said that.
I'm going to take control here. Let me just take control for a minute. I'm going to ask for our attorney to give a explanation on this.
Pursuant to the Brown Act, there is no obligation to provide public comment on an item on the agenda that's not an action item. And, whatever other language an agency wants to put on the agenda as far as, designating something as an action item or non-action item is not a Brown Act or legal issue.
Okay, thank you.
I struggled over which I should do, talk at the beginning or talk with the items, because it was unclear to me which would be more appropriate. I'll yield. Go ahead with your meeting. I'll comment later.
There's no more comment, though.
Okay, so we have a comment from Board Member McCauley.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to suggest that we go out to the public and provide an opportunity for some comment. I know it's not required, but just my opinion, and I do respect the chair's opinion, but just wanted to make that note.
Okay. So I'm going to make an exception on this item to allow the public to speak. However, I will speak with our director and our council on our agenda moving forward. Okay, so this was item number 11.
We're on 10. Finishing up 10.
Was it 10?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, item 11.
Good idea, thank you. Thank you very much. I'd truly struggle with whether I should speak at the beginning of the meeting or whether now. So thank you for making this exception to your normal practice. My name is Nancy Richardson. I want to say again, it's a marvelous report. I agree with everybody else. It's really, really excellent as to content, format, and everything. I did have difficulty making a copy of it, so I can't tell you what page to turn to, but the one with cleaner air improves public health, I'd like to bring attention to the last sentence of the first paragraph. Emerging research suggests that air pollution may have adverse effects on central nervous system and lead to neurological issues such as dementia. I want to say, I'd like to ask you to look at that again, because I think there's an avalanche of research on that subject now, and the graphic does not point to the brain as an area of impact from air pollution. I think that's a serious omission. So I'd like to have some, ask you to consider whether you should mention that brain development is very much affected by air pollution, and pollution has a significant impact on mental health and on the development of dementia. So if you redo that and update that, and it looks like what I just described, my question to you would be, how would that impact on what you do and how you talk about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Okay, we'll move forward. This was a report to the board. There's no action for voting.
And through the chair, I'll just note that we'll certainly take the comment into consideration and see what we could do to you know, it's recognized, and I think we'll see if there's anything we can do to continue highlighting that. So thank you for the comment.
Through the chair, there is one online comment
Okay.
if you would like to take
All
that
right,
one.
thank you. Yes.
Connie Young.
Okay, go ahead, Connie.
Yes, hi, thank you. So this is Connie Young again. First, I'd like to thank Shanika and your IT team for enabling me to rejoin the meeting after I was inadvertently dropped earlier in the call. So thank you, Shanika. Once again, this is an excellent annual report, and it clearly describes the good work being done by your board, the staff, and your community partners. I'd like to add to what Dr. Sheriff said about your response to climate change. Research is showing that over 50% of Americans are alarmed or concerned about climate change. And Citizens Climate Lobby conducts informal surveys in our community, and we're finding exactly the same thing. People are really concerned about this subject. So I really appreciate your calling it out, calling it climate change in the report. You're demonstrating that you are aware of it, that you're doing something about it. Will be nothing but very reassuring to our community. So I thank you for that and your ongoing work to address greenhouse gas emissions as well as air pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Do we have any further online comments?
No further indication of comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will skip item number 11 and move to item 12.
Me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to bring up a couple of things for the board and the public. Last week, there was a number of persons, elected officials, and myself went to Washington, D.C. to talk about various priorities of the Valley, everything from the importance of air quality funding to the importance of Clean Air Act implementation and various transportation issues. Just want to note that was, I think in everybody's opinion, a successful trip, a lot of good engagement with various federal partners on various issues of importance to the Valley. Just wanted to also acknowledge that there were a couple of board members that are parts of that Valley trip that were also part of that trip and did a really, really great job in communicating the various issues. Chair Chiesa, Councilmember Rosa Escudia-Brayton, and Mayor Preciado were all actually part of that trip. So great work to all of them and doing a good job representing the entire Valley. I also wanted to mention that the kids calendar is open for entries. This is a very competitive, very exciting aspect of what we do. So if you know anybody out there that have children who are great artists and are passionate about clean air, please get the word out about this calendar so we can gather as many entries as possible and then come here and actually showcase that work and hopefully be able to bring the kids and their families and the wonderful teachers that are also a part of this here to share in that with the board. And then lastly, I wanted to mention the legislative session basically wrapped up here recently. I wanted to express appreciation on behalf of the district to the vast majority of our Valley legislators who, in a very tough year, whether it was budget or on some of the policy issues, really worked hard to understand our priorities and ensure that we, for example, were able to receive some farmer funding this year when that funding was at zero in the beginning of the process. So just wanted to express appreciation to largely our Valley legislature, both on the Assembly and Senate side, for the work that they did to really help this region address the difficult air quality issues that we have. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair and the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to item 13, governing board member comments. Do we have anyone with comments? Board member Chiesa?
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to report on a couple of things. Samir touched on the DC trip, and it was interesting because air quality was included in the Regional Policy Council's LEDGE platform. It was a lot about transportation, movement of goods and services. But it is amazing. The timing was right. Air quality was really the number one subject of the trip. It ended up being the number one subject of the trip, talking about our state implementation plan. I think we had really good meetings. We have strong leadership from Samir and Tom Jordan. And I can't say enough about them and their ability to transfer knowledge, for lack of a better word, because it's very complicated. And when you're talking with administrators, they understand the basics, but we're talking to our congressional staff, it maybe is a little difficult, and they did a great job for us. The other thing I wanted to report out is that when I returned, I had a meeting with the Manufacturers Council of the Central Valley. Maren Pitt is the executive director. She's actually in our audience right now, along with their executive staff, talking about issues coming up, but really talking about opportunities where we can work together and, again, to make the San Joaquin Valley business friendly, as well as continue to improve the air. A great meeting, and I look forward to opportunities to actually strengthen those ties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Chiesa. Any other comments? Dr. Scherer?
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Lewis, for making an exception on the public comments in the spirit of encouraging public engagement. I just wanted to suggest to staff that we revise that paragraph on public comment, because it specifically says it is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. And we should clarify so that the public is aware that if it's not if it's not an action item, that there may not be an opportunity to comment later in the agenda. Because the suggestion is don't comment if it's on the agenda, when according to Brown Act, it really relates to action items. So if that could be clarified for the public, I think that'd be very helpful. Thank you. And thank you again, Chair Lewis.
You're welcome. Any other comments? Okay, well, I have a final comment, and I see Mr. Cunha. Oh, Mr. Cunha is still here. So I want to personally thank him and Valley Air and any other participants that helped with the event that we were able to attend to see our new and improved tractor and farming equipment. I was particularly amazed as a city girl about the almond tree shaker and how that new equipment kind of wrapped around the almond tree, and the almonds went into a basin and up through a conveyor belt and neatly stacked on the ground, totally different from the old shakers that just kind of shake stuff everywhere. And I happened to be going to Turlock this past Monday, and I saw a tree shaker, and it was the old one where it just shook the tree to death, and the almonds, kind of flew everywhere. So what an improvement on that piece of equipment and how it operates and how it simplifies the farmer to be able to collect his product and get it to market, and probably a bit more cost effective in the long run. So thank you so much to everyone that made that possible for the board to attend. And I look forward to other ones in the future. And with that, we have closed session, Annette.
Yes, thank you. We do have one closed session item, as indicated on the agenda. It is a non-action item. And so we will convene into closed session now. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have to hit the gavel.